Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? You know, it's a massive game for the Saints if they're going to keep this thing on the rails while Derek Carr is out, because you can look at what's ahead for New Orleans and you can really start to identify the games that you got to get. And Sunday, first of all, you're at home. You're at home in a divisional game, and you're at home in a divisional game against a team that's coming off a short week. This is one you got to get. Like, you've got to get this one at home against Tampa. And then when you look ahead, you're on the road back-to-back weeks at New England, at Houston, which C.J. Stroud is playing very well. And then you have a short week at home against Jacksonville. Now, you're at home on the short week, but that's still Trevor Lawrence and Jacksonville, who I think we could probably say is the best quarterback you're going to face this year. I mean, there could be an argument to be made for Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford, maybe Kirk Cousins, but Trevor Lawrence at this point in his career might be the best quarterback you're going to face this year. So you look at what's ahead and you realize, man, Patriots, Texans, Jags, Colts, 3 of your next 4 are on the road, and the one that's at home is on a short week on Thursday Night Football against maybe the best quarterback you're going to face this year. You have to get this one at home against Tampa on Sunday. That's just not even a negotiable one. Saints are a 3-point favorite. But they get it. They'll have to do so with a backup quarterback. As Derek Carr, we learned with the sprained AC joint, is certainly unlikely. We all assumed he was unlikely to play this week, although they haven't completely ruled him out. But as we often say, actions speak louder than words, and the Saints signing Jake Luton off the Panthers practice squad, it just screams so much more loudly than anything anyone might say this week. First of all, a few things about Jake Luton, just as a reminder, and then I'll kind of get into what this means and how it may play out this week. So, the cool thing for Jake Luton is because he was signed off the Panthers practice squad. Remember, if you sign a player from a practice squad, you have to sign them to your active roster. You can't sign them from someone else's practice squad to your practice squad. If you poach a player off a practice squad, you have to sign them to your 53. So the Saints are signing Jake Luton to their 53-man roster. And the corresponding move, obviously, was Tre'Quan Smith, bye-bye. And when you do that, you're guaranteed 3 weeks' pay. So for Jake Luton, this is a great thing. He gets signed to an active roster. He guarantees himself 3 game day checks. Good for him. Luton is a guy who kind of bounced around a little bit in college. He started his college career at Idaho, then went to community college, then finished his college career at Oregon State with the Beavs. He was a 6th-round pick of Jacksonville in the 2020 draft. And after he was drafted by the Jaguars, he bounced around a bit. He was in Jacksonville in 2020, his rookie season. 2021, he spent in Seattle for part of the year. Then he spent part of the year with the Dolphins in 2021 as well. Then back to Jacksonville in 2022 before being released and ultimately being signed by the Saints. He was released in camp and then signed by the Saints in September of 2022, and he spent the bulk of the season on the Saints practice squad last year. So Saints practice squad, then he was actually elevated to the active roster for a couple of weeks in October, and then after Jameis was injured, we know how that all went, and then he was waived and back on the practice squad. So basically, Jake Luton was with the Saints all of last year, and then they waived him in May, and then he was signed by the Panthers to their practice squad. So the reason this makes a lot of sense, first of all, Luton he started 3 games during the COVID year, his rookie season, started 3 games with Jacksonville during the COVID year. And he spent all of last year with New Orleans. So it's a guy that knows your coaching staff, knows your offense, knows the terminology, knows the personnel, knows the facility, the building, where to get around, how to eat, all that sort of stuff, where to stay, everything. Like, it's a very familiar, comfortable thing for Jake Luton just coming right back to where he spent all of last year. Also, obviously, you're playing a divisional opponent. He was with Carolina, who's already played, who you've already played this year, obviously. So there's some things to like about bringing Jake Luton in. Now, the sincere hope is you don't need to see Jake Luton take a snap, but I get why they're bringing him in. Keep in mind, because the obvious questions could be, well, why not just have Taysom as the backup? Remember back in 2020 when Drew Brees got hurt? Brees got hurt in the game against the Niners in 2020. And Jameis came in the middle of the game when Brees got hurt. The next week, Taysom spent the week preparing to be the starter and started when Brees was out in 2020. And the reason is really twofold. Number one, primarily, then in 2020, Taysom hadn't spent that whole week repping the game plan for the 49ers as a quarterback. He spent the week preparing for his Taysom Hill role as a runner, as a wildcat quarterback, as a tight end receiver, special teams, all that sort of stuff. So that's number one. Number two is he's got great value in the Taysom Hill role. So if you spend the game week with Taysom preparing for his role, and then all of a sudden something happens to Jameis and you move Taysom into the quarterback, number one, he hasn't been practicing quarterback all week. And then number two, you no longer have Taysom available to you in the role in the many multitude of things that he does. So I'm just playing out the scenarios. This is certainly not likely, and none of us want this to happen. You have Jake Luton with you this week preparing as your backup. If something were to happen to Jameis, Jake Luton would be your quarterback. In game, I mean. If something were to happen to Jameis this week, next week, my assumption is Taysom would spend the week preparing to be your starting quarterback, and Jake Luton would be the backup, provided Derek Carr wouldn't be available. Derek or Jameis wouldn't be available. So you hope none of those things happen. What we all hope transpires is is that Jameis is healthy and has a great week of practice and goes and absolutely crushes it against his former team Sunday in the Dome and wins for the Saints for as long as he's the quarterback until Derek Carr returns. That's what we all sincerely hope happens. But if you're New Orleans, you have to prepare for every possibility. And if something were to happen to Jameis this week during the game while he's starting, you have to have an option. And the best option isn't taking Taysom away from his Taysom role. It's having another quarterback ready to go. So Jake Luton apparently will be that guy this week. At least that's as it seems right now. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.